Good afternoon, everyone. I think my colleagues also from RARE would help me later on if you have some like questions from here. Yes, for the fishery supply chain. So maybe before I start, let me just introduce a little more of our organization. So RARE is a nonprofit organization which is committed to scaling behavior-centered solutions for conservations. So it is implementing a global initiative which we called Fish Forever. So it leverages behavior adoption approaches to achieve sustainable fishing. So we work in different countries. So it is designed to empower vulnerable communities in Indonesia, Micronesia, Palau, Brazil, Mozambique, Mesoamerican Reef, and here in the Philippines. So here in the Philippines, so we work with 35 coastal communities across the country to restore and sustain the small-scale fisheries, conserve critical ecosystem, coastal protection, food security, and of course, sustainability of the livelihood of our partner fishing communities. Small-scale fisheries have been providing significant contribution to the fishery sector, but I think before the enhanced community quarantine, the supply chain looks like this. Our fishers is like receiving a disproportionately low percentage of economic value coming from their catch because there's a lot of actors along the chain, and then the value does not really goes back to the fisher. So looking at this at the chain, so we've mapped out the pain points for each actor. For the fisher, so the main problem even before the implementation of the enhanced community quarantine was their problem in accessing the post-harvest facilities such as the cold storage and the source of the ice to maintain the quality of their catch, and also access to financial services because our fishers don't have really this formal financial transaction that could back up their loans when they're doing it with some of the formal financial institutions, and then also their access to the fishing inputs because most of them they're relying it from their primary buyer who are the consolidators within the barangay or the village. And then these primary buyers, their main problem is really their access to the capital because they've been providing capital to the fishers, and then sometimes because of the bulk of the supply that the fishers have been delivering to them, sometimes they could not capitalize or to sustain the fishing operations of our fisher. And also when it comes to buying a bulk of supply, and also when the fishing season comes in, they have problem in accessing those post-harvest facilities or even provision of ice to maintain the quality of the fish catch. So especially if it's in the barangay level. For the broker, I think the broker are more of like facilitating the market transaction, facilitating the selling of the goods coming from the primary buyer in the village. So it's more the broker. It's more of like he or she is a consolidator of the several supply coming from several primary buyers. So also same with the primary buyers because they're also capitalizing the fishing operations of the operations of our primary buyer and the fisher. So they have this problem also in accessing those the capital, and also the post-harvest facility, especially the cold storage, especially if the catch is in bulk already, and the cold chain logistics, which means they're struggling on transporting their goods from one place to another or from one market to another market because of the lack of those equipment or those logistics support. And then for the comprador, they also refer to is the comprador or the buyers coming from the different casa, or they are the traders. So well, it's they're having problem with accessing also the supply, because since these broker are having problem with the of the cold chain logistics, so they could not easily bring those catch to the secondary buyers or the big traders, and even to the fish processors. And also same problem, access to financial services, and with the retailers coming from different municipalities and also retailers within the municipality. So they're having problem with the access to the supply. There's the supply is there, but it could not reach them because of the problems or the challenges in the cold chain logistics. So the COVID-19 pandemic has put the world on a crisis footing with unprecedented actions to restrict movements and all our plans. And also it affects the supply chain, the fishery supply chain. So now the supply chain is broken down. Like when you can see from the previous slide, it has a lot of actors along it. But during the enhanced community quarantine, so the fishers are now trying to see the value of like and the consolidators of really like linking their produce directly to the big retailers, because in agriculture they've been doing it already, but in the fisheries, because it's maybe because of the tradition or the culture in its area, so it's really hard for them to really bypass some of the actors along the chain. So, well, the pain point is still the same in this in the context of the COVID-19. So, but there's some addition to it. Just like, for example, for our fishers, they've been having problem with the access still with the financial services. How do they now, given that they can go on fishing, but where do they get their inputs, especially if they need to replace their fishing nets? Where do they get it? Where do they buy it? Is it part of the government regulation that these suppliers can still operate in the midst of COVID-19? And also accessing those financial services to finance their to continue their fishing operations. And the effect of price freeze on them, because we're seeing is that if the price freeze is being implemented by the government, where do the value goes? Because there's also report that there's this surges also in the price of fishery goods in the market. So we're now really thinking of where do this value really the value of the increase in the price in the fine last mile consumer, where did it go? And then also because of the limited mobility of the fishers, also it's been a challenge for them, because they could not really, they are not free to move anywhere to bring their supply. And for the consolidators, of course, one is still their access to the capital, of course, to capitalize the fishers, and also access to post-harvest facilities, especially in maintaining that bulk of catch that has been delivered to them, and access to the cold chain logistics that could help them, or that could help them transfer their catch from one area to another area. And also they've been wondering also on the effect of price freeze, because fishers and consolidators have been the government has been very strict with them when it comes to price freeze. But of course, as what I've mentioned earlier, that there's this surge of prices in the final or the last mile consumers. So that's I mean, where's the value has been captured by who? By who's the actor along the chain who's been capturing that value and the increase of the price coming from the last mile consumers. And then also these the bulk retailers coming from different municipalities. So they've been working directly with the consolidators. I mean, so they still have problems with accessing the supply, cold chain logistics, of course, because they've been because of limited mobility. And of course, these institutional buyers already have limited buyers. Given, for example, our schedule in market days, our schedule in going to the mall, supermarkets, buying those stuff from us, and also the goods that we've been buying is also restricted or being limited. So that's their main concern. So there are these different initiatives done by the government to stop that pain somehow, and to ease the burden somehow of our actors along the chain. So the government have been implementing. So our government has been very helpful to our, especially for the vulnerable communities, which includes the fishers and the farmers, which they have this program on TUPAD, which is the Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa Ating Disadvantaged Workers Program. And also this cash transfer, unconditional cash transfer, the social amelioration program to somehow help our fishers buy their necessities or the essential goods for their family. And also a lot of money has been given by what has been requested by the DA from the government to support this Alpas COVID-19, which is Ahon Lahat Pagkain Suporta. So that was all, I think that were all a temporary solutions or to mitigate our current situation. And also on the other side, on the market side of the supply chain, so the Bureau of Fisheries and the Department of Agriculture have been very helpful. Their program on Kadiwa ni Ani and Kita has been very helpful in connecting the fishers directly to the market, and the consolidators directly to the market. And then the BFAR, which provides logistics support in the form of transporting the fish from one area to the other. And then the government has now already mandated that the LGU should purchase agri-fishery products and distribute it as a relief goods to support or to support our fishers and farmers. So given all of this, we think that I think there is still a lot of things to do that that the government has been doing, that our government has been doing good in implementing those efforts. But how does it impact really the communities that we've been working with, which include the who are hindered from I mean their mobility has been hindered. So there's these challenges in accessing the market to sell their produce or buy essential inputs for them. But the effort of the government, our next question with that, is it scalable, or can we sustain really the livelihood of our fishers given that solution? So I think there's a lot of things still that needs to do, especially on the cold chain logistics, which is really how do we maintain the quality of the catch that our fishers has been producing or catching, that it could still be as good as quality when it reached the last mile customer. The access to post-harvest facilities, some areas have, some have not. So, and the eyes to maintain the quality of their catch. And also another is the access to fishery inputs, which is really important to sustain the fishing operations of the fish, and then access to financial services, because the amelioration program is just one time. It's not the lifetime of the fishers that will be given. I mean, until the pandemic or the COVID-19 is there, how do we sustain that? So we really have to think of something which could sustain the livelihood of our fishers. And also maybe strengthening networks or linkages within the supply chain, because there have been a lot of actors before, but during the ECQ, it's workable with the aid of these cold chain solutions, cold chain logistics. We could directly connect our fishers to the last mile consumer, and also maybe digitizing the supply chain is one way also of cutting the fish trade chain, which is too long and detrimental oftentimes to our fishers. And also, well, also to strengthen the collaboration among the actors along the chain. So I think that we can and we will survive this epidemic by working together and by being by joining forces. I believe that our vulnerable communities, the fishing community, can survive and thrive in this new normal. Thank you. Thank you. I think that will be all.
Okay. Thank you.